Buenos días. Bien, continuamos con esta quinta sesión. Quisiera comenzar felicitando a este prestigioso Club de la Energía, prestigioso porque se lo ha ganado a base de una prolífica actividad de debate, de estudio, de reflexión, de formación en el ámbito de la energía y muy particularmente de Derecho de la Energía. Y felicitar muy especialmente a su principal inspirador en este ámbito, el profesor Íñigo del Guayo, por todas esas actividades que se realizan y muy especialmente por este seminario que se está demostrando que está resultando muy interesante. Para mí es un placer y, por tanto, además de la felicitación, agradecerle la oportunidad de estar aquí y de hacerlo pues acompañado, muy bien acompañado, en esta mesa, aunque va a haber 3 ponencias. Lo que pasa es que de la tercera tenemos por ahora solo el cartel y esperamos tener una comunicación telemática desde Holanda para asistir a esa ponencia. Por tanto, presentaré a las ponentes por separado y comenzaré por Inés de la Barreda, que nos va a hablar de las condiciones de acceso a la red para los intercambios transfronterizos de electricidad. Inés comenzó trabajando para dos grandes constructoras españolas, pero ya hace 14 años se pasó al lado luminoso y al campo energético, mucho más inspirador, mucho más emocionante. Y desde el año 2002 trabaja en Red Eléctrica de España, orientada siempre a proyectos internacionales, y ya en noviembre del año pasado pasó a formar parte del Departamento de Regulación. Además, Inés recientemente ha sido elegida Chair of the Legal and Regulatory Group de la ENTSO. Antes se comentaba la importancia de esta red europea de transportistas y, por tanto, creo que es la persona idónea para hablarnos del tema del que nos va a hablar. Muchas gracias, Inés. Bueno, se me olvida decir que va a hacer su presentación en inglés. So, whenever you want.
Thank you very much. Hello? Yes. Hey. Thank you very much. Yes, actually, well, I saw that the program was in English, so I prepared my presentation in English. First of all, I would like to thank very much Club Español de la Energía for inviting me today, and especially Íñigo del Guayo. Thank you very much, Íñigo, for inviting me to talk about this very interesting issue. So I think I have to say that I was a little bit surprised first when I got the title of my speech, because, okay, Regulation 714/2009 was already approved in 2009. But at the same time, I think it's very important to have a look at it, because by having a look at it, we will see how this regulation is being implemented. It's implementing acts are being implemented, and this can give us a hint of how things will go on with our next proposals of the clean energy package, or so-called winter package. So as a reminder, we have to say that this regulation is part of the internal energy market as an main EU policy objective, and the pillars of the third package, which was approved in 2009, were really to create a real choice for consumers, both citizens and business, so that they could choose their provider among any provider EU-wide. It intended to increase cross-border trade, and with this increase of cross-border trade, efficiency gains would be achieved. At the same time, this would lead to more competitive prices and a higher standard of services at EU level, and security of supply and sustainability would be as well increased. So the third energy package, as you all know, is formed by Directive 72/2009 and 2 regulations. Regulation 713 that created the Agency for the Cooperation of Energy Regulators, so-called ACER. Some of my colleagues have already talked about that, a very important piece in all this jigsaw. And then Regulation 714/2009, which is the regulation on which we are focusing in this presentation. This regulation is called Regulation on Conditions for Cross-Border Exchanges in Electricity. So this regulation has several elements for implementation. They have the creation of ENTSO-e, which is quite a novelty because it puts together all TSOs, transmission system operators, in a common association at EU level. Previously, two associations existed, which were UCTE and ETSO, but these associations were of a voluntary character and participation. ENTSO-e has a stranger legal nature, as it's both a non-profit association and at the same time it's legally compulsory, its participation for TSOs. So this association that was incorporated in 2009 had in the regulation as one of its main tasks the establishment of network codes. Network codes are a set of technical rules that try to harmonize from the technical point of view the transmission of electricity in Europe. There are as well some other elements, but I think that taking into account the reduced time we have, I will focus mainly on network codes. So these network codes that you can see in the regulation, mostly being already adopted, have two different figures, under two different figures, network codes and guidelines. I think it's important to clarify that both network codes and guidelines have some common features. The common features is that they are implementing acts of the regulation, electricity directive and regulation, and they will be forming an integral part of the third energy package. They are using the same legal instrument, which is an EU regulation. So no matter what the title is, they have the same legal value and legal character. And they are both created for the same purposes, cross-border network issues, which means that they would in principle not deal with internal member states' rules and market integration issues. So network codes, what are the differences between them now? For network codes, they are, the establishment of network codes is foreseen in Article 8 of the electricity regulation, and in principle they do not require further steps for their implementation. But they do require to take some measures at national level. For guidelines, guidelines were a reality because once the process of drafting of network codes started, and this process was led by ENTSO-e, the association, it was realized that it was not possible to provide a final solution or scheme to be directly applicable. So the only way to end up in subjects such as markets with a final end-up solution was to provide a step-by-step approach. This step-by-step approach is foreseen in these guidelines, and it's construed as a requirement for the development of some technical proposals by the transmission system operators, and these technical proposals afterwards have to be approved by the national regulatory authorities. And at the end of all the process, we would have the final end-up solution. There are other guidelines as well foreseen in Regulation 714 and in the directive. But these are already provided for as guidelines and have been in other domains approved as well. Regarding the state of play of network codes, at this moment we have 8 network codes. They are divided in 3 kind of different nature network codes and guidelines, excuse me. So we have connection network codes. Those connection network codes establish the technical requirements for the connection of to the grids, and there are 3 different network codes, which are those establishing the requirements for connection of generators, those establishing the connection for demand, and those establishing connection for HVDC cables. So these 3 network codes are already in force and are in an implementation phase, which later on I will explain a little bit what it consists of. Then there are a set of operational network codes that try to establish common operational rules at EU level. These are System Operation Network Code guidelines, and Emergency and Restoration. These are approved in comitology, but are still pending the scrutiny of the European Parliament and the Council. Finally, we have network codes on market. These have been approved as guidelines, and we have both capacity allocation and congestion management, and forward capacity allocation. Capacity allocation and congestion management is the guideline that has as a final aim to create a single day-ahead and intraday market. The day-ahead market has already been achieved, and cross-border intraday is a project in course now that will soon be implemented. These two guidelines are in force. In fact, capacity allocation and congestion management guideline was the first network code guideline in this case to be approved in 2015, and they are in an implementation phase. So we are going through all these steps that I was talking about before. For the electricity balancing guideline, this has been already approved in comitology, but is pending the scrutiny of the European Parliament of the Council. So regarding a little bit the legal nature and what is next, the next steps regarding these three sets of codes, we have connection network codes, as I said. Those are in an implementation phase. And these are very particular because they require the adoption of certain rules at national level. These rules that are to be approved at national level require or are in the use of national legal instruments. So we have, on the one hand, the European Network Code that approved it as a regulation, and then we will have measures implementing. I know that regulations are not implemented at national level in theory, but this is a kind of specific case, implementing certain aspects. These certain aspects are very, very reduced in scope because they are technical ranges that have to be decided on a narrow frame that is already established by the network code. So the connection network codes have a set of exhaustive requirements which are mandatory across Europe, and then we'll have non-exhaustive requirements, so-called non-exhaustive requirements, which are the ones or the ranges and frames that have to be approved at national level. For system operation guidelines, as I mentioned, they have not yet been published, so they are not enforced, but some early implementation projects have been taken by TSOs. These early implementation projects are done on the basis of contractual agreements, and then we'll have to go through the legally binding process established by the guidelines. Why is this done like that? Because with the implementation dates that are established in all these regulations, it would not be feasible to reach the proposed guidelines, the proposed deadlines. For market guidelines, we have capacity allocation and congestion management and forwards capacity allocation already in force. As I said, capacity allocation and congestion management has already achieved the creation of a day-ahead EU-wide energy market, and is on the process of providing this final solution and implementation for the intraday market. For forward capacity allocation, there's already in process, or a platform has already been created for auctioning physical and financial transmission rights for horizons from the year ahead to the day ahead. Regarding electricity balancing guidelines, they are in an early implementation phase, so balancing energy will have its own platforms, which are already created in a fashion of multilateral agreements as well. And then once the guideline enters into force, they will have to go through the same process as the others. What is interesting is that, well, the European Commission is very much interested in fostering the implementation of these network codes. So they know that they have to give signals that all these energy packages work properly. So it's very interesting, but last week they organized a conference in Brussels about network codes and its implementation. In this conference, the opening was given by Mr. Borchardt from the Directorate B of the Energy Commission dealing with internal energy market, and he stated that implementation and application are important to deliver benefits for the consumers. So they consider it to be a building block of the internal energy market, and it requires a coordinated approach. For the correct implementation of the codes, as the frame is not really very, very clear, what they propose is to create an implementation and monitoring group formed by ACER, ENTSO-e, and the European Commission. There is the need as well to provide some guidance for this coordinated implementation so that we don't end up by having a lot of different systems, as was the case before, but that we have harmonized solutions EU-wide. They consider that a success of the drafting process was the stakeholder involvement. I really want to underline to continue having this stakeholder involvement. And they consider it very important to really draft the roles and responsibilities of the different parties and entities at EU level, national level, and regional level. So, and the final idea is that now implementation and enforcement is on the hand of national authorities, both member states and NRAs. So finally, as a summary, and to sum up and end with this presentation, I would like to pinpoint three main ideas. First, that most obligations in Regulation 714, third package, have already been delivered, and so it was created. Network codes are most approved, missing perhaps publication and entering into force of some of them. But we have some pending activities. These pending activities, as I said, the publication of pending guidelines and implementation at national level. In Spain, we have a process now of implementing connection network codes in force where all stakeholders and regulators are involved. And implementation of guidelines, which the guidelines have a different implementation process, which is at EU level with these agreements between the TSOs and approvals by NRAs. So what's next? What we have ahead of us is the implementation of the package. We have to bear in mind that there will be a tight follow-up by the European Commission. We have to bear in mind as well that they will be behind member states and NRAs because they consider them to be the responsible entities for implementation and enforcement of this package. And as a final thought, just this has been all a look backwards a little bit and how the process has been going. A look into the clean energy package. So as you see, we have not yet finalized implementing the third package, and we are already thinking about this winter package or clean energy package, which provides some slight amendments to what is already drafted there in the codes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for this very, very interesting presentation and for doing it in time. Now vamos a intentar hacer la conexión con Holanda. En estos momentos me siento un poco como en Eurovisión, que va a ser mañana. Vamos a ver si hacemos esa conexión con Ámsterdam. También advertir para el funcionamiento de esta mesa, las preguntas a las dos ponentes que tenemos presentes las realizaremos como el resto de las mesas al final de su intervención. Sin embargo, las preguntas que puedan dirigirse a la profesora Hancher las haremos inmediatamente después de su intervención. Mientras intentamos, cruzando los dedos, que funcione todo correctamente, voy presentando a la ponente. Estamos en contacto con ella por WhatsApp. Sin más. Bueno. Vamos a intentar que sea ella la que llame. Creo que esa es la operación que estamos intentando. Y puedo ir presentando a la profesora Laigh Hancher, que es Professor of European Law and the University of Tilburg, and she also works in Allen&Overy. WhatsApp. Me confirman que, como suele ocurrir, cuando se ha hecho la prueba funcionaba perfectamente y es cuando tiene que funcionar con 20.
José, you are not picking up, dice que no estamos contestando. ¿Estamos contestando?
Here we are. You ready? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry there was a few difficulties. Thank you very much. We tried to get through several times and something went wrong. So I've been asked to talk about capacity market mechanisms and state aid issues. So, can you all hear? Yes. Good. I have sent a PowerPoint which will be distributed afterwards, I think. Is that correct, Inigo?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you again for inviting me. I'm sorry I couldn't be here in Madrid with you, or I couldn't be there. It was a bit of a heavy schedule this week. So I was worried that I would not arrive on time. But I hope in the meantime you are having a good conference. So on the complex issue of capacity market mechanisms, we don't have very long, 15 minutes I think, for me to explain some of the basic issues that we are confronting. Now, as you, I think, know, at present, under the third package of energy legislation, European energy legislation, we've had a strong focus on market liberalization, making sure that markets then could guarantee competitive prices. We've looked at unbundling, we've implemented unbundling at transmission level, we've created institutions like ACER, the ENTSO-es to facilitate interconnection and trade. And at the same time, while we've done all that, through mainly initiatives sponsored by DG Energy, we have had a separate policy to promote renewable energy, sponsored initially by DG Environment. And what has happened in a sense is that we have a silo mentality, if you like. The two different parts of the European Commission were sponsoring policies that clashed, even although they weren't really fully aware at the time of how they clashed and the consequences that the renewable policy was having for the workings of the internal energy market. So when the Commission initiated its inquiries into the functioning of the energy market, its assessment of the current energy market, and looked at whether we need a new market design, one of the things that it was considering was how do we deal with the rise in flexible renewable energy generation. Is the market design under the third package fit for purpose? Is that actually going to deliver a low carbon market, energy market, by ultimately 2050? And if we read the Commission documents that have led to the creation of this new market design that they want to implement through the various regulations and directives in the winter package, you will see that the Commission has considerable concerns about the lack of proper integration of renewable energy into the current energy market. That renewable energy has various privileges that distort the market. Now, of course, on the other side, conventional fossil fuels have also enjoyed a lot of privileges in the past. It's a very heavily aided sector, and that has become even more so through the adoption in many member states of capacity market mechanisms. So the problem that the Commission is now trying to confront is, how do we deal with a situation where we have a market design that allows renewables to be promoted in various ways, pushing conventional electricity off the grid, and then at the same time raising issues at member state level as to whether or not we have sufficient flexibility and generation adequacy in the different national systems. So the member states are in many cases reacting to the increase of renewable energy through introducing capacity market mechanisms. Why are they doing this? They're doing this for two reasons. The so-called missing money problem. They're seeing there's not enough investment because energy prices are held very low in wholesale markets. That's partly because of dispatching rules, that renewable energy production can be dispatched at very low prices. So that pushes conventional plants down the merit order. They can't run, they can't cover their costs. So no one wants to invest in new plant. So that is an issue that is raising concerns about sufficient generation adequacy. There's also the so-called missing money problem, and the Commission thinks that the current market design doesn't create the right price incentives for people to invest. In particular, there is not sufficient scarcity pricing in national markets. In other words, prices should be able to rise to influence consumer behavior, and therefore investors should know what consumers are prepared to pay for. Now, in many member states, especially retail prices are held down. They're heavily regulated. And so consumers do not know what the real price of electricity is. They don't know what they should be paying in real time. Now, the Commission then has looked into these problems in greater detail in two parallel exercises. One I've mentioned is the Market Design Initiative. So this was commenced in the course of 2016, and the Commission has produced a very detailed staff working document. And this document helps us understand the proposals the Commission is now making in the winter package for the new electricity market design. At the same time, and in parallel with the Market Design Initiative, the Commission used its powers under the new state aid procedural regulation to conduct, for the first time ever, a state aid sector-wide inquiry into capacity market mechanisms. So this exercise was launched in 2015. It produced an interim report in April 2016, and then to coincide with the launch of the winter package proposals, the Commission also produced then a final report on capacity market mechanisms in Europe. Now, this idea of a sector-wide inquiry, we've borrowed that from antitrust law, from competition law, where we've seen the Commission use this instrument as a way of learning about what's going on in a sector. And so this way the Commission can get a great deal of information. And you must remember with state aid, normally when the Commission starts a case-by-case type inquiry, its first address is the member state. The Commission gets all its information from the member state. And the member state might not always feel like being very cooperative, and might not give the Commission all the information that the Commission might want or need, and it might be a bit slow. Now, the great advantage for the Commission with a sector inquiry is that they can go out and ask everybody. They can ask industry, they can ask trade associations, as well as governments. And this is what the Commission did in the sector inquiry. And you'll see that what that produced already by the interim report stage was a long list of capacity market mechanisms that had never been notified under the state aid rules to the Commission. So in fact the Commission found that in 11 countries there were 28 different capacity market schemes. And for those of you who have maybe looked at that document, you'll know that in Spain there were at least 3 of these schemes in operation. So in the course of this exercise then, the Commission was able to get a better understanding of why member states were using these schemes, and it was also possible for the Commission to get a greater insight into the types of schemes that member states have been using. Now, the Commission in the Market Design Initiative, as well as in its report on the state aid inquiry, maintains that the best type of market that we should have in Europe is an energy-only market. So that the energy prices that are coming from exchanges or over-the-counter contracts are energy-only prices. They do not reflect a capacity component. And the Commission believes that if these energy-only prices are not regulated in any way, that there's no interference at the retail level, that these prices with price spikes to reflect demand shortages, supply shortages, should then allow the market to function properly. So the outcome of both the Market Design Initiative and the inquiry into the state aid aspects has been that the presumption should be that the energy-only market can work. And therefore, these capacity market mechanisms should only be allowed as a matter of last resort, and what the Commission calls no regret. So you have to look at all the other possibilities as a member state to get this energy-only market to work properly, and only then can you consider whether or not you will have to introduce an additional mechanism, which is a capacity market type mechanism. So this is the kind of economic thinking of the Commission. Yeah. Yes? Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So to then, when we look at now the policy on these mechanisms, you have to take the Commission's point of view as it now stands, which it can implement into its state aid assessment when it looks at individual cases. So we don't have to actually wait for the adoption of the winter package to see the change of policy being introduced. It can already be introduced through the state aid guidelines. And what the Commission says it's going to do is to harmonise the way Member States estimate whether they have an adequacy problem. Do they really have a problem with generation shortages in the near or immediate future? Then the Commission wants the Member States to demonstrate that they have implemented all the possible techniques available to make the energy-only market work. These are the so-called no-regret measures. And they should always be given priority. So a particularly important measure in the future will be to stimulate demand-side management as much as possible. And the final issue that we will see being stressed again and again is cross-border participation. So where a member state does decide that it has no alternative but to introduce one of these mechanisms, then participation from other member states must be allowed. So if you have generation capacity in France and you want to sell that into a Spanish market, you should be allowed to do that. So that is, in a very quick bird's eye view, where we are with our policies on capacity market mechanisms. Now we have a lot of cases, a lot of individual decisions, which the Commission has adopted since 2015. In my slides you will see I have listed these, and I will just finish by saying, although the Commission policy is looking very tough, to date the Commission has been able to declare every single system to be compatible aid. So every market mechanism, capacity market mechanism that the Commission has looked at has been eventually cleared as compatible aid. Now we have one going on in Germany at the moment on a strategic reserve that might raise some problems, not least because Germany has been allowed to implement 2 schemes already. We have one in Brittany, which is called a targeted mechanism, where the Commission has also got a lot of doubts as to whether or not this is the right way forward. But apart from that, the Commission, its bark seems worse than its bite. So it's barking a lot and saying, oh, these capacity market mechanisms, these are bad things. But it's not yet using its powers to stop member states introducing them completely. Okay? So do you want to ask questions or? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, that's a very good question. It would require quite a long answer, but maybe we can see that the French government put that argument forward in trying to defend their market, their capacity market mechanism. And the Germans have also tried that. And so far the Commission has not accepted it because they say that the mechanisms do not seem to be designed to meet a real generation adequacy problem. So the Commission has doubted whether there is a real problem. However, many lawyers consider that 106 could still be relied on because we have, of course, the famous Spanish coal case, the case called Castelnau, where the Spanish government gave a lot of aid to keep coal-fired plant running, and it was in effect, although it wasn't called a capacity mechanism scheme, it had the same objective. And the Commission did allow that at the time under Article 106, paragraph 2. But I think that if all these reforms that are put in the winter package now to have harmonised generation adequacy assessments and reliability assessments, as well as cross-border mechanisms, it's going to be very hard for a member state to rely on Article 106, paragraph 2 in the future.
Thank you very much for your opinions. Say goodbye from Madrid to
Okay.
Amsterdam, and we hope to have you soon here back.
Okay, good luck everybody. Thank you.
Bien. Nuestra siguiente ponente es la doctora Nuria Encinar. Trabaja en Viesgo, que es una de las más importantes compañías eléctricas de nuestro país, y es Head of Legal Public Regulatory Affairs and International Regulation. Me vas a permitir que reduzca o sintetice tu amplísimo currículum. Yo distinguiría dos actividades principales. Por un lado, la actividad profesional en el ejercicio de la abogacía. Según leo en el currículum, es letrada con más de 15 años de experiencia. Yo al leer este dato me ha sorprendido muchísimo, ¿no? Uno de los anteriores ponentes hablaba de la carga que supone cumplir años, que es la que sentimos pues prácticamente todos, pero desde luego la doctora Encinar lo lleva muy bien, o lo lleva con una ligereza digna de envidiar. Y en esos 15 años pues ha desarrollado su labor ante organismos públicos, ha trabajado en la Comisión Europea, también ante los reguladores del sector energético y de la competencia ante los tribunales españoles y de la Unión Europea. Y además de esa actividad profesional, pues destaca su formación y su actividad académica. Como ya he dicho, es doctora por la Universidad CEU San Pablo, además con la mención honorífica de del doctorado europeo. Ha hecho diversos posgrados, uno de ellos en este Club de la Energía. Ha recibido distintos galardones por su actividad académica. Es profesora de distintas materias relacionadas con el derecho público, la Unión Europea, el derecho de la energía, el derecho administrativo, en distintas universidades españolas y también en este mismo Club de la Energía. Tiene diversas publicaciones y otras que están por venir, entre ellas su tesis doctoral. Y además de todo es técnico en comercio exterior y licenciado en ciencias actuariales y financieras. Ya se pueden imaginar que con este currículum podría hablar prácticamente de cualquier cosa del derecho de la energía, pero muy especialmente creo que es la persona más adecuada para hablar en esta ponencia sobre el mercado de la energía común centrado en los consumidores, dado que su tesis doctoral precisamente se tituló Suministro eléctrico y protección al consumidor en España, Inglaterra y Gales. Pues muchas gracias por tu presencia y somos todo oídos.
Muchísimas gracias por tus amables palabras, profesor. Bueno, ¿se me escucha todo esto? Bueno, ¿te queda una salvedad? Muy bien, muchísimas gracias a todos ustedes. Quería hacer una salvedad. Ayer me dirigí a todos ustedes en inglés, hoy creo que toca en español,
La presentación la he hecho en dos versiones, en inglés y en español, pero dada los asistentes son todos hispanohablantes, he decidido hacerla en español, pero que sepan que la ponencia está preparada y está a disposición de todos ustedes en las dos lenguas. Bien. Bueno, buenos días a todos ustedes de nuevo. Como es oportuno, primero debo de realizar los agradecimientos. Es un honor para mí participar en este seminario. Quiero expresar mi más sincero agradecimiento a don Íñigo del Guayo, al Club Español de la Energía, a don Arcadio, a la sección de energía del Grupo Académico Asesor de la Asociación Internacional de Abogados por darme la oportunidad de estar con todos ustedes y a todos ellos por contribuir a la realización de este exitoso seminario, además en un año en el que se conmemora el 60 aniversario del Tratado de Roma. Bien, la presentación, sin más preámbulos, la presentación se titula Energy Market Focus on Consumers, right? Un mercado energético centrado en el consumidor. Para ello, para llegar a esa conclusión, he dividido la presentación en dos secciones. La primera, hacia la conquista de un mercado interior de la electricidad. Ahí vamos a ver los precedentes regulatorios, la Unión de la Energía, The Energy Union, que fue la estrategia que fue adoptada por las instituciones europeas el 25 de febrero del 2015 y efectivamente el paquete publicado el 30 de noviembre del 2016. Tras ello, una vez que tengamos este mosaico de normas en mente, veremos cuál es la contribución del consumidor a la consecución de todos los desafíos europeos. Veremos la participación activa del consumidor, cómo se le empodera y su estatuto jurídico y los clientes vulnerables y la pobreza energética. Sin pretensión ni posibilidad de exhaustividad, por razones de escaso tiempo, no creo que llegue a todas las secciones, pero sí que a las conclusiones que sí que quería llegar. Bien. Hacia la conquista de un mercado interior de la electricidad. O sea, la consecución de un mercado no debe de ser una aspiración imposible. 3 paquetes legislativos, la Directiva 96, la normativa de cabecera, la Directiva 2003-54 y la del 2072, están siendo necesarios junto con la estrategia marco de 25 de febrero del 2015 para que su consecución se perciba más cercano. Tanto es así como el 1 de noviembre del 2014, la Comisión Juncker dio un nuevo giro a la política energética y tanto es así que su política está centrada en fortalecer la política energética europea y consagrar un mercado interior de la electricidad. 3 meses, tanto es así que en 3 meses más tarde, en febrero del 2015, se publica la estrategia marco de una unión de la energía resiliente con una política climática prospectiva. Y a partir de ahí aparecen 2 años de una intensa actividad regulatoria. La estrategia incluye una hoja de ruta de 15 acciones que se han ido divididos en distintos paquetes. Tras ello tenemos el paquete de verano, que es el del 15 de julio del 2015, que es A Clean Energy for Consumers, que es un nuevo acuerdo para los consumidores, cuyo objetivo es unir el mercado mayorista y el mercado minorista en beneficio de los consumidores. Pasado el año 2015, en el año 2016 se publica el paquete de sostenibilidad energética, que lo vamos a ver a continuación, el 16 de febrero del 2016 y acto seguido el 30 de noviembre del 2016, que es una energía limpia para todos los europeos, que incluye el que sería el 4º paquete legislativo. Pues bien, la estrategia marco, ¿qué es? O sea, para nosotros, quizás en términos ingleses puede tener sentido de Energy Union, pero la unión de la energía, ¿qué es realmente? Pues bien, es la consecución de un mercado interior. En definitiva, la consecución de un mercado, de un nuevo modelo, que es como se llama estas sesiones, conlleva una transformación profunda del sistema energético europeo. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Quiere decir que debemos dejar atrás economías propulsadas por combustibles fósiles, economías basadas en modelos empresariales obsoletos, modelos o sistemas basados en que solo se centren en la demanda. Tenemos que empoderar a los consumidores, tenemos que dotarles de mayores facultades, tenemos que darles mucha más información y evidentemente tenemos que flexibilizar tanto la demanda como el consumo. Y evidentemente tenemos que abandonar sistemas fragmentados, caracterizados por políticas energéticas descoordinadas. Bien. ¿Qué pretende la Unión de la Energía? Ofrecer a los consumidores una energía segura, limpia, competitiva y a un precio asequible. Para ello, las instituciones europeas traen 5 dimensiones, que son las que por tiempos de tiempo no las voy a citar. En definitiva, el objetivo de la Unión de la Energía es poner al consumidor en el centro del mercado, que el consumidor asuma un papel en la transición energética, que se pueda beneficiar de las tecnologías reduciendo sus facturas y que participe activamente en el mercado. Bajo este contexto nace el paquete de diciembre, el del 30 de noviembre del 2011, que yo, permítanme, yo no le llamo paquete de invierno porque se publicó en otoño, pero bueno, en cualquier caso, y además, bueno, en cualquier caso, otra cosa que voy a decir, que con respecto, como ven ahí la glosa, que es la consecución de un mercado interior, yo además añadiría en la glosa y en la que se proteja al consumidor. Es una glosa extraída de la propia estrategia, la que está en cursiva, y en la que se proteja al consumidor. Bien. Como digo, este es el nuevo paquete publicado en noviembre del 2016, el 30 de noviembre, y consta de tres, o sea, bueno, de lo que es el cuarto paquete legislativo, que es la directiva modificativa de la directiva 2009-72, la modificación de la ACER y la modificación del reglamento 704. Evidentemente las directivas de eficiencia, que las comentarán mis compañeras, y la de renovables, y 2 nuevas, la de gobernanza que habló esta mañana José Antonio y la de crisis que habló Joaquín. Como digo, cerca de 1000 páginas contiene este paquete, y bueno, será el paquete regulatorio para el decenio 2021-2030. 3 objetivos: anteponer la eficiencia energética, ofrecer a los consumidores un trato justo y liderar las energías renovables a nivel mundial. Bien. Pues bien, ahora vamos, o sea, una vez que ya hemos ubicado contextualmente y regulatoriamente todas las propuestas, vamos a ver cómo se define o cómo se diseña al consumidor. Bien, el consumidor adquiere un papel protagónico y esencial en el nuevo modelo. Tanto es así que es el centro de todas las actividades y, por tanto, todas las acciones tienen que estar afectadas por esta decisión. Dicho de otra manera, la Comisión Europea ha propuesto modificar el mercado para que el consumidor pueda hacer unas elecciones, pueda elegir a sus comercializadores y pueda contribuir y que realmente el sistema energético se provea de consumidores activos, comprometidos y con plena decisión de autonomía. Bien. Como muestro en la slide, el objetivo es la transición a una economía hipocarbónica, sostenible y respetuosa con el clima. ¿Cuáles son los desafíos actualmente? Pues bien, como todos bien ustedes saben, tenemos un objetivo de incrementar la energía renovable a 27% para el año 2030. En eficiencia energética, quería destacar un minuto para la eficiencia energética, es un principio rector en la Unión Europea, la eficiencia energética. Recuerden que una energía más limpia, más segura y más competitiva es la energía que no se consume. De manera que la eficiencia energética, el principio de primero la eficiencia energética, es el mejor instrumento para apoyar la transición a una economía hipocarbónica. El objetivo de la eficiencia, tanto es así que se ha pensado incrementar el objetivo de eficiencia energética de 27 al 30%, gases de efecto invernadero un 40%. Recuerden que el 2/3 de las emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero proceden de la producción y del consumo de energía eléctrica, la seguridad de suministro y, dentro de todo este marco, el sistema de gobernanza para que se cumplan todos los objetivos de la Unión de la Energía, incluidos los del año 2030. Bajo estos desafíos, estos retos, ¿cómo puede contribuir el consumidor? Bien, generando, produciendo, almacenando, practicando el autoconsumo. Si realmente el consumidor tuviese acceso a señales de precios transparentes y reales, en tiempo real, participaría en mecanismos. Ayer lo decía el profesor Lee Parok, ayer le decía bastantes cosas muy acertadas, tanto en lo que es los mecanismos de respuesta a la demanda, que están muy desarrollados en Estados Unidos. Los consumidores europeos debemos participar en los mecanismos de respuesta a la demanda, debemos modular nuestro consumo, tenemos que practicar autoconsumo, tenemos que reducir nuestras facturas utilizando tecnologías que permitan instalar paneles en nuestros tejados, utilizar baterías, consumir energía renovable. Bien, posibilitar al consumidor en el mercado es garantía de éxito a la transición de una energía limpia, segura y sostenible. De eso es más, incorporar a los consumidores en el mercado evita costes para ellos y para los operadores. Bien, importante, no quiero olvidar, es necesario, es esencial exterminar los precios regulados. Precios regulados por debajo de los precios de mercado son un obstáculo a la competencia, disuade la nueva entrada de operadores y por tanto deben ser eliminados cuanto antes. Las instituciones europeas establecen una hoja de ruta para su eliminación. El mercado mayorista, los pagos por capacidad, no voy a reiterar en todo lo que ha dicho la profesora Laigh, que venía de la que me ha precedido anteriormente. ¿Cómo realmente el consumidor puede participar? Bueno, pues con los clientes activos o con los agregadores. De hecho, ayer Lee Parok efectivamente hablaba de que estaba muy desarrollado en Estados Unidos la figura del agregador. Bien, pues es una figura que, si bien es cierto que en la Directiva 2009/72 se cita únicamente en 2 ocasiones, existe una regulación exhaustiva en la Directiva modificativa de la Directiva 2009/72. Bien, es el consumidor quien debe decidir cómo quiere actuar, si bien en nombre propio o bien delegando sus decisiones a un agregador, en este caso, que es quien realmente decide el consumo y a cambio pues una contraprestación económica. No me quiero extender mucho más. De manera que si empoderamos a los consumidores, les dotamos de mayores facultades, es elocuente que se debe de establecer un sistema o un estatuto jurídico que proteja todos sus derechos. Bien, no quiero ser exhaustiva, es muy importante la lista de control que establece las instituciones europeas, es decir, todos los Estados miembros tienen que tener una lista de control en la que establezca la información práctica de los derechos de los consumidores. Esta lista de control tiene que estar a disposición y tiene que estar actualizada. Los derechos, desde el punto de vista de derecho a la información, derechos contractuales, derecho importantísimo, la herramienta de comparación de precios, el axial del mercado, el consumidor tiene derecho a cambiar de comer y el comer a abastecer libremente a sus consumidores. Tiene derecho a un precio libre y a que exista una garantía de competencia efectiva en el sistema. Estos son todos los derechos que en definitiva los he agrupado en tres patas: capacitación del consumidor, hacer realidad unos hogares y unas redes inteligentes, y la protección de los datos que son propiedad del consumidor y que si los quiere ceder tiene que ser bajo su consentimiento expreso. Bien, clientes vulnerables. En una configuración en la que, estoy ajustándome a los tiempos, en una configuración en la que se sitúa al consumidor en el centro del mercado, debe de velarse por un sistema que proteja a los colectivos más vulnerables. Bien, los clientes, en este caso me refiero a los clientes vulnerables y a la pobreza energética. Los clientes vulnerables, que de hecho en España, pues por un motivo u otro, están por distintas sentencias jurisprudenciales, están siendo bastante conocidos. En el caso de hay que destacar que la directiva modificativa de la 2009/72 avanza positivamente en este aspecto. No solamente avanza en la protección a los consumidores vulnerables de la pobreza energética, sino en todo en sí, en el toma del consumidor. Son 198 referencias, 3 capítulos, 44 artículos de 98 los que hacen referencia, es decir, es elocuente el papel protagónico del consumidor. En el caso de los vulnerables, es muy importante, establece un plazo de 5 años para los precios regulados. Y la nueva directiva, lo que hace es que acoge la sentencia del Tribunal General de la Unión Europea, la sentencia de Fidelity, es decir, las obligaciones de servicio público que las mencionaba anteriormente el profesor del Guayo. Pobreza energética. No me quiero extender, obligación de los Estados miembros para establecer cuáles son las medidas para proteger a aquellos consumidores en situación de pobreza energética, qué medidas usted ha tomado para contabilizar esos consumidores y tienen que reportar en un plazo de 2 años. Bien, Y ya para concluir, he comenzado hablando del mercado interior de la electricidad y lo que tengo que decir, quiero terminar diciendo que el mercado interior de la electricidad no es un fin en sí mismo, sino que es un medio para conseguir los objetivos de la Unión de la Energía, incluidos los desafíos del año 2030. Es necesario incrementar las interconexiones para hacer viable un mercado interior. Es necesario exterminar los precios regulados. Hay que fomentar los cambios de comercializador. Los consumidores tienen que participar activamente, de manera que unos consumidores más informados, dotados de mayores facultades, protegidos y con precios justos, seguramente que participarán activamente en el mercado. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes.